Fazluddin Abrams, and this is part 2 of the pilot episode of my show. We were discussing the foundations of what the show is all about. And in the first episode, we were speaking about my family history, my educational history, my employment history, and also the factors of life. The 5 factors of life, meaning emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, and financial, which is important to maintain a balance on. So to get started with the spiritual principles that I will be applying in my show. The first being acceptance. So the spiritual principle of acceptance ultimately would apply in a way where one can only change if you accept that it is wrong. So if you accept that it needs to be changed. If one do not accept something to be broken or something to be wrong, then you will never change it. So acceptance is key in changing a viewpoint, an opinion, your way of life, and that is the first principle that we'll be applying in various topics that we'll be going through. The second, third, and fourth is known as compassion, courage, and commitment. With compassion, for me, one has to really look at another and say, am I able to understand why the next person do what they do? For example, in domestic violence, why does a husband beat a wife or a wife abuse a husband? And I'm not saying it is right. By having compassion towards that person is not saying that it's right, is merely understanding why he behaves in that certain way. And the answer could be that he was abused as a child. He grew up in an abusive relationship or an abusive household, and hence the reason why he became the abuser as a result of the resentment that he had. So having compassion gives me the ability to identify why a particular person acts in a certain way, and once I know that, I would be able to pinpoint and guide the person, or at least understand where the person is coming from, and I would then deal with that accordingly. The second one, commitment and courage, or what I call the second C, is commitment. So in any relationship, be it a loving relationship with your spouse, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a work colleague, any relationship, be it in a friend. So it's important that one needs to understand what commitment is required in performing a particular role in society, your role in your family, your role in your workplace, for example. So you need to be able to commit to that relationship. You need to be able to commit to that role that you play in society. And then we also look at the aspect of courage. Now, courage is what you might find many people, including myself in the past, has found it difficult to face our fears or deal with a particular aspect. Even when I studied law, there were times when I just did not have the courage to write the exam or complete the assignment, and that is where I found assistance in speaking to a creator, my creator, or my God, the God of my understanding, and also speaking to my family and my wife, my children. As the discussion went on, I managed to build courage because they motivated me. And that is how one applies courage. Then you have faith. Faith is obviously for me a very important principle, because it's what I believe, who I believe in, what I believe in. My belief system must be strong, and if I have a strong belief system, I'm able to stand up to those who want to hurt me, those enemies out there, any individual who may come and wants to demonize a person or prey on another person, we have to stand up with courage. We need to face our fears. Also, if one wants to be successful in a task, we have to ask ourselves, do you want to be successful? Then how are you going to be successful? Are you able to overcome the fear of success? Are you able to overcome the fear of failure? And that is basically the courage that is needed in order to be successful, to face your fears and to overcome your demons and jump over the hurdles that is required in order to face life on life terms. So faith, faith is definitely a belief system that one needs to have. And then you have forgiveness. Forgiveness is ultimately what I would say the principle of forgiveness gives me peace. It gives me the ability to identify what the other person has done, and when they have done that, I'm able to forgive them, because I cannot afford to hate people. I cannot afford to not forgive individuals, because if I do not forgive them, I start harboring resentment and hatred, and I become angry. So forgiveness is something that comes easy for me to forgive people in order for me to move on, but also not to look at people and build resentment and build enemies, for that matter, out there. Then I have hope, humility, and honesty. Hope is something that I gain from having my strong faith and putting my belief in a great God of my understanding. And that gives me hope. When I see people achieve things, then that gives me hope. When I see people, their lives are changed as a result of my efforts, then that gives me hope. When I see people and hear people coming to me for help, that also gives me hope, because I can be of service. I can be of a purpose to mankind. I am useful to society, not a menace to society. So that gives me hope, and that is how I'll be applying hope in the show. Humility. Humility is a very important topic for me, and a principle that I have to apply, because as much as I am sitting in the suit, for example, I may not be grandiose. I do always consider myself when I'm out there in public, and it is the most important thing for me to remain humble. And it's difficult at times, because once you're in a legal practice, you have to stand up in court and you're surrounded by a lot of people, and you have this cloak on your, and you have to present yourself to the magistrate or the judge. And when you turn around, you see people looking at you, and you are easily able to fall within that scope of being grandiose. So I would then certainly just greet that people and say hi, and greet them with a smile, and in that way I try to remain humble, you know. And also, if I have harmed anybody out there as I go along during the day, I tend to ask forgiveness, and I say sorry, because there are many times when I lose the plot. I think maybe too little of a particular circumstance that I found myself in, and I don't take note of it, and that is where I lose it. And then afterwards I realize I should have given more attention to the person I was speaking to, and then I would maybe then just approach a person and say, you know what, earlier I said something which may have offended you, and I ask forgiveness for that. So forgiveness is quite an important principle that we would be discussing on the show. Then I have integrity. Integrity, hope, honesty, humility. So integrity is a principle that I would like to speak about, and I, as a legal practitioner, I find many people coming to me and speak about what the issues are, and that is where I need to have a high level of integrity. So whatever I speak about, I need to not speak over to another person. I need to keep it for myself. Even if if one day my wife comes on the show, I'm certainly going to ask her the question, have I ever spoken to you about a matter at home? And she would say no, because even if family members, for that matter, in my presence start speaking about other people, or if I find myself in a group of people who discuss another person, I walk away, or I don't comment on it, because it's difficult for me to speak about other people where they are not present. Then we have the principle of love. Love is something which comes easy for me, and I think that the concept of love does not really mean that they have to be a loving, a relationship between man and wife, husband and wife, or man and woman, or any other gender for that matter. That it's about loving each other because we are human. It's about loving the animals, about loving nature, it's about loving society, it's about loving what you do. And that is the different types of love that one can apply. But love is basically where you say that you care about another person or another thing, and you are worried about what happens to it. That is love for me. Then we have the aspect of open-mindedness. The principle of open-mindedness is very dear to my heart, because I work and I live in a society where we have different religions, we have different philosophies, we have different views out there. And I think that if one cannot be open-minded, then you would not keep yourself or give yourself the ability to learn, because we don't know everything. We don't have a hard drive that can just you can copy the data and the information on there, and you would know everything. We don't. So as I speak to individuals, be it in my legal practice, in court, in society, with friends, socializing, on video, not as much as what we used to in the past, given COVID-19. But the open-mindedness is very important. We need to learn from others, and we need to listen, and we need to hear what they have to say before we respond. So it's important to practice the principle of open-mindedness. And then the principle of patience and perseverance. So patience is something which I struggle with, because for those who know me, I would always in the past want, and also now in the present at times, want something to be done now. I need it done now, immediately. Everything is important for me, and so patience is a principle that I do struggle with, but for myself. But when it comes to someone else, my expectation on other people is based on the principle of patience. If people do not conform to what, for example, my children or my grandchildren, if I find that they are not what I would expect them to be, I'm patient, because they are their own people. I can only lead by example, and give them my opinion of what my values and morals are. But ultimately, as they grow up, as they become adults, and as they live their own lives, they will have their own values and morals, and they would apply their own principles, and not all of them as I do, but some of them might do it more diligently than what I do, for example, especially the one of patience. So yeah, perseverance is another principle. Perseverance is a principle for me which I consider as, we're living in a life where we cannot give up. We need to persevere. For example, the aspect of COVID-19, the lockdown, we are finding ourselves in very, very difficult situations. but we need to persevere in what we're doing. Yes, there are times when people have to be quite honest with oneself and say, you know what you're doing is not working under the circumstances. We need to try something else. But once we start trying there's something else, we need to persevere and not give up. We cannot give up, stop feeding the people, stop thinking about them. What are they going to do? Because there's so many people that is poor and hungry. They are starving, so we need to do something. We need to persevere in being human. Then the principle of self-acceptance for me, I mean, as I'm sitting here, I have to ask myself, am I happy with myself? So am I able to accept who I am? Whether I have defects of character and whether I act out on them, it's neither here nor there. The question is, am I happy with who I am? Am I accepting myself, who is a human being, with assets and defects of character? Am I able to say, fine, I'm not going to kill myself over doing something that has hurt another person? I cannot go and blame myself every time and say, you know what, it's because of you. I just have to accept that what I did, what I will do in the future most probably, is not in the interest of another, but in my self-interest. But then I have to accept myself and say, fine, I'm not perfect. So can I change it? Can I ask for forgiveness? Can I change what I did? Can I make it better? Can I build a new relationship with a person? So the principle of self-acceptance is something that one has to really have a conversation with yourself in order to apply it. Self-discipline, and I think the self-discipline was one of the principles that really carried through my 40 modules of practicing law. And there I really found myself struggling at certain times, but I was glad I had the people around me. I had my wife who supported me. I had my family who motivated me, who cheered me on, and I had my friends as well. I had a study buddy. His name is George Barkezen, and he studied with me. We studied our law degree together, and it took us 5 years or 4 years, just over 4 years to complete. But through that 4 years, we really got to know one another, the self-discipline that I managed to apply was as a result of the support of him as well. So self-discipline is not only a principle that you practice by yourself. You could be practicing it as a result of the motivation and the support of others. And then you have self-acceptance, self-discipline, and selflessness. Selflessness is a principle of saying, you know what, life is not just about me, it's about others. It's about being selfless. It's about thinking of the people around you. Think about your family. Think about your neighbors. Think about society. Think about the people out there who do not have the ability to educate themselves, who do not have the role models as parents, the support of families. So therefore it's important that we who can and who have the ability is to do videos like this and to run the show like I intend to run, in order to educate and to motivate and to help others overcome their hurdles. And then you have self-acceptance, self-discipline, and self-honesty. Self-honesty is a principle where I also have to say, am I being truthful with myself? Am I really able to say that I am doing something to help another person? Or am I doing it for my own individual gain? That is when we are self-honest with ourselves. If we can say without a doubt and with the fullest of confidence that I am self-honest. I have taken my inventory. I have identified that I have done something wrong, and I'm able to seek forgiveness, and I'm able to forgive as well. So self-honesty is another principle that one should really have, that relationship with yourself. And then we have surrender. The principle of surrender for me is the ability to say that, I've had this life before COVID, and as much as I'm trying to build and try and fight to have the same life, I'm just not able to, because COVID-19 has affected so many facets or factors in my life that I am not able to live the same life. So I have to surrender. I have to acknowledge and give up that way of life where I can go to the beach. I have to surrender the beach right now. I have to surrender going to the movies. I have to surrender going and to the mall as much as I want to. I have to give up going to a takeaways maybe once a month or twice a month. That is the principle of surrender that is required in order for us to overcome the challenges that we face. And if I apply surrender, I am able to accept another way of life. Because certainly we are facing a new normal. We are looking at the world through a lens. We are speaking to the world through a lens. And usually we would do these type of events or shows with a huge audience in front of us, but we cannot have that anymore. So for now we have to surrender that and give it up and live the new life. And then you have steadfastness. Steadfastness, the principle of steadfastness for me simply means that we just have to stand fast. We have to look the challenges that we face in COVID-19, in our life, in our day-to-day life, with our marriage, with our family, our children, our siblings, our friends. We have to be steadfast and say, we will overcome these challenges. We will overcome the pandemic, and we will be able to stand together and unite in order to fight the pandemic and not be selfish. We cannot be grandiose. We cannot be ignorant and arrogant about what society out there is facing. So, yeah. And then the last three spiritual principles that I'd like to speak about, which we'll be applying in our show on a regular basis, is the principle of trust, unconditional love, and willingness. So trust for me is simply a principle and a character that one really need to earn. You will earn the trust, and this is what many people say. You have to earn your trust. But I'd like to put a spin on it, though. I'd like to just bring your attention to my way of looking at trust, is that if I speak to you as a human being, if I come into contact with you, or I speak to over the phone, and we start a conversation, and that develops into a particular type of relationship, whether it's business, whether it's friendship, or whatever, the trust that I practice is immediate, based on the fact that you are a human being. But I have to be wary. So I place my trust in you until you show me that I cannot trust you as a person. So yeah, unconditional love for me, I'd like to equate the principle of unconditional love to what you usually would say a parent have for a child, even though we find many parents discarding their babies, and I can't seem to wrap my head around how people can do that. But it is what I expect a parent should have for a child. Unconditional love. and what a child should have for a parent. Unconditional love. There is no condition to loving the person. Whether they do bad things or good things, I would still be able to love the person. I may not like what they do, may not agree what they do, but unconditional love is something that I need to apply constantly, and be it to a loved one, a parent, a wife, a brother, a friend, a member of society. Regardless, unconditional love is what I need, because I cannot afford to hate people. So I don't like hatred. I don't like, because you know what, hatred just makes you sad. It just gives you reason to act out on your anger, and it clouds your judgment. And then the last one is willingness. I think the willingness is something that one needs to apply when you find yourself questioning on whether you should or not. If it's something that's positive, if it's something that can help save a relationship, if it's something that can really make you a better person, if it's something that can help society grow, then certainly the willingness that is required is not a thought of willingness, but an action of willingness. It's just doing what you have to do. Like I'm sitting in front of this camera, I would never in a million years think that I would be starting a show and sitting in front of a camera and speaking about all my life story, my challenges that I had to face in the past, and also what I plan to do for the future. But I am willing to do what is needed in order to bring change to society, and hopefully people will learn from that. Hopefully I would become a different person, someone who would be a responsible, productive member of society, who have the best interests of society and humanity at large. So yes, those are the principles that we will be following, and I'm extremely excited. I'm definitely looking forward to having many guests on my show. We would be speaking about legal principles and compare them to the spiritual principles that I apply. It would be various topics of law, legal practitioners, property practitioners, bond originators, financial advisors, risk assessment or risk management consultants, corporate, all different types of corporate. And what I'd like to also introduce at the latest stage is something called the Fuzz Law Foundation, where the Fuzz Law Foundation would be a particular foundation with a purpose of assisting and developing economic stability, ensuring that small businesses are educated and they are mentored and they are guided on how to become successful, how to firstly operate a small business by themselves, and thereafter to transition into something being more of a larger business who employs more people and creates jobs. And the foundation, I would like to appeal to any sponsors at the end of the day, but not now. When it comes to that point, sponsors who are able to sponsor not only the show but the foundation as well, so that we can further our purpose. I think that would be it. But before I go, I want to give a special thanks to my mentor, Faisal Sayed. So I'm very excited, and Faisal, I want to thank you deeply, and I wish you all the best. And today, being this recording, which was done on Mother's Day, I know that the recent loss of your mother is still very painful, and may the Almighty grant a high place in Jannah and make it easy on you, my brother. And I thank you for all the efforts that you have so far mustered up and applied in making a difference in my life. So yes, people, one is Fuzz Law Show and the other one is the Fuzz Law Foundation. Looking forward, and thank you for watching.